Blair the Bee Gees, baby, because the Bombers are staying alive. We are here with the Bomber Boys less than 10 minutes after the game has come to its conclusion, and we will have a game three tomorrow night in the Boogie Down. Season on the line for Boston and for the Bronx. It is going to be a thriller. Schlittler will make his postseason debut. We'll see a youngster for Boston and their bullpen now a little bit more depleted, and it is setting the stage for what should be a good one. But through the first two, after a roaring weekend, and the roar was the pun intended from a Nittany Lions loss, Justin Chevalella catching up on it all. How are you?
You know what? I'm doing great because that loss is now in the back seat. The Yankees lost in game one, pretty much in the back seat because the Yankees won game two. They keep their season alive just barely, but hey, barely is good enough because it gets the job done. So I am fired up on this Wednesday night, the first night of October, as Halloween is inching rather close. Not that that matters, but it was pretty spooky at times tonight for the Yankees. Dylan, how about yourself? You better have the same energy.
I'm pumped up, dude. I wasn't ready to sing like you were, but I am pumped up.
Well, clearly I wasn't ready to sing either because we had to cut that idea.
Takes, but the win has got me a little bit more bought back in. After the other night, I texted you and said, I don't know how I feel. We almost did a complete opposite of judgmental Justin and positive Price because I was about to sell all my Bronx Bombers stock. I don't know. I had an envisionment, but if it was the same as Justin's envisionment of Penn State beating Oregon, well, that was probably better. That my envisionment doesn't come to fruition. So as it currently stands, the Yankees have advanced to tomorrow. And just off the top, that is a big victory. But also some stellar performances from some faces who didn't necessarily contribute in the regular season as reliable, and some that didn't play last night but came through tonight. So we will kick it off as the Yankees, as you heard us kind of start with, are staying alive. So going back to last night, we'll start there because Justin and I did not record last night. Garrett Crochet was exceptional. Max Fried was really darn good as well. This was a good old-fashioned pitcher's duel, but when it came down to a chess match, Alex Cora went with his guy, and yes, he did have a lower pitch count, but he went with his guy. He trusted him a little bit more. Boone went to the bullpen, and Luke Weaver, who has had a awful September, but hey, September's over. Pages turned. Awful September, though, for Luke Weaver. It was punctuated with his worst postseason performance as a New York Yankee. Yankees dropped game one to the Red Sox. Just some kind of quick thoughts on that one. I know we're going to really analyze two of the guys he left out, so I saved that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can really blame Boone for taking out Max Fried at that point because you look at how much Max Fried had struggled and labored over those last couple of innings. I'm shocked to even put him out there, but the lefty-lefty matchup made it make sense, right? Into the seventh inning. I said maybe you let him go one batter, but what if that batter hits a solo home run, right? You don't know what's going to happen. And at the time, the Yankees were leading 1-0, so you could have accepted the solo home run as a tie game, but I can't blame him. Fried was clearly tired. If the Yankees get to the next round, Fried's going to have to pitch again pretty darn soon. You don't want him injured. You don't want him dealing with that blister again. Can't really blame him. But going to Luke Weaver in that situation, that's a little questionable. There's other guys, one in which we saw today, High-Lev Dev has been pitching so much better now over his last 10 appearances, hasn't allowed an earned run, including tonight's performance in which he went an inning strong. I mean, he's a guy you may have brought in there. Why not Bednar for multiple innings? I know you probably want him to go all three games if you need him, but you can think about it that way too. Even Camilo Doval had some solid performances. It felt like Aaron Boone just took the worst possible reliever at that time. I mean, Fernando Cruz came in right after Luke Weaver, and he got the job done. And obviously tonight we learned pretty quickly that it looks like Fernando Cruz is going to be kind of the Clay Holmes of last year, right? Where Luke Weaver was the main guy in the bullpen, and it was Clay Holmes who stepped up in a big point in the playoffs, more so than I think a lot of people realized when he crossed town to go to the Mets this offseason. Well, I think Fernando Cruz is now that second option to David Bednar. I know Williams pitched in between them, but I don't think he's that second option. 2 straight games for Cruz, 2 straight games for Bednar. But, I mean, at the end of it, it came down to Garrett Crochet. He was exactly what the Red Sox paid for in that big trade that sent tons of prospects, including Kyle Teal, to the Chicago White Sox. 7 2/3, 4 hits, 1 run on that Volpe home run, 11 strikeouts, no walks, 117 pitches. That is an ace coming up in the biggest moment. Fried did the same for the most part for the Yankees, fell an inning and a third shy of what Crochet did, but they both got outs when they needed to. Crochet just got a little further, and that allowed Alex Cora to just have to hand the ball off to Aroldis Chapman, who has had a resurgence that I don't think anyone was expecting around baseball, not just Yankee fans who watched him, crap the bed constantly. And he almost did for the Red Sox. But when you can go from starter to your closer, that's going to lead to a recipe of success. Yankees batting lineup really just couldn't get anything going, punctuated by the bases being left loaded in the 9th inning last night, which is probably a story in itself, which I think we'll get to with some of those decisions that were made.
And that'll be the moment that if the Yankees had lost tonight, everyone would have gone back to, outside of if they had blown the lead that they had early on. But even then, it felt like this game was a little bit closer than last night. The Yankees felt like they had ceased the momentum. And then after the Luke Weaver mess up, and then from there, kind of struggling to get it back, bases loaded. There was just, that would have been the moment with how they stranded it with no outs that everyone went back to, that in the Weaver moment. But after tonight, those are things that you can kind of flush out a little bit. They'll still gnaw at you if you lose the series, but you can flush them out after you got that loss back tonight. So let's move to tonight, because I think last night you kind of hit everything on the head. I don't know on the Fried thing. I was a little surprised till I saw the pitch count. I think that was one of those things I just blocked out. Fried was doing well. Yes, he got himself into, precarious situation, whatever it may be. I don't know. I think at that point, you trust the hot hand to go face one more batter. Maybe it gets him over 110. I get you're trying to save him too. This is a marathon, not a sprint in the postseason. But damn, if you don't treat these games like a sprint right now, and they better tomorrow night, they are not going to get to run much further into the marathon. So that's always my perspective. Maybe it's a flawed perspective, but every game matters in the postseason.
I guess the only question would be if Fried had gotten through 7 and Weaver came in the 8th, right? Does the same result happen? And we obviously don't know that. It's a what if. But
same way we don't know if Fried keeps going, if he hits a guy or goes off the rails. You can make those both hypotheticals. That same way we would have made the hypotheticals about how this all turned out as it did had they lost tonight. But they did win tonight, and you got to talk about the winners in this regard. Shout out Josh Pate. Carlos Rodon was really effective tonight. I know the line, 3 earned runs, didn't necessarily show it, got into some trouble, but I think all things considered, Rodon had a few bad pitches tonight, and tonight otherwise he had a pretty good performance. And I think that was really all you could ask after last night, because Fried had his best stuff last night, and to try to match up toe-to-toe with that was going to be a little bit challenging. But I still think Rodon, the brakes didn't fall off. This wasn't a Rodon collapse, and it wasn't a Rodon masterclass. But given the outcome, given all that worked out tonight with Fernando Cruz and Bednar and Devin Williams, this was kind of the perfect in-between of a start for Rodon. So starting with Rodon there. What were your thoughts on tonight? For me, it was just a couple bad pitches on an otherwise pretty solid night.
Yeah, I mean, I'd echo that same sentiment. And I think, when you look at starting pitcher spot number 2, right, this is exactly that performance you're looking for. Max Fried probably fell 2/3 shy of what you're looking for from an ace, but he kept the shutout going. So you'll kind of give that trade-off last night. But Carlos Rodon, 6 innings, 4 hits, 3 earned, 6 strikeouts against the Red Sox, keeping the Yankees in a position to win the game. That's what matters in the postseason. And doing it so, look at what Boston did tonight. Boston exhausted their bullpen. And I know their pitch count's not necessarily too high on a lot of those guys outside of Garrett Whitlock, but Alex Cora took out Bello pretty early in this game and turned it over to his bullpen. Carlos Rodon allows the Yankees bullpen to be relatively fresh, all things considered, heading into a game 3 that 2 rookie pitchers are going in. And Cam Schlittler has been up and down. Sometimes he can give you 6 strong. Other times we've seen him go 2/3 of an innings. So it can go like that. So what this performance was the epitome of that second starter spot, getting the job done. Eventually in this postseason, if the Yankees continue on, you want to see him take that next step and give a little bit more in a longer series. But in this case, in a best of 3 series, this is the start you need from, your second starting pitcher. You got the job done, especially being the better of the 2 pitchers in this matchup. You take what Carlos Rodon gave you any day of the week.
You called him high lev dev. He certainly was that tonight. You cannot, I mean, you and I were hyped up. I was ready to run through a brick wall after watching Fernando Cruz. And then, tee it up to David Bednar, the guy who has been rock solid. I wish, my one complaint of the night, I wish ESPN would have hung with the broadcast and let us hear Renegade in that stadium blare, because I think it would have been electric. Will Parkinson, a Jets Twitter guy, but a diehard Yankees fan, tweeted that stadium was shaking. It was so loud in there. For me, that would have been pretty epic, or at least just to hear the atmosphere as he walked out, let alone, just what it would have been like. One, we should have gone tonight. You're 100% right. I'll give you your flowers in that regard, but let's give the bullpen their flowers, because the 3 of them performed outstanding tonight, and I think that was a hell of a performance.
And you have to give it to Boone. After the failure of last night, he pulled the right cards tonight. And yeah, it was a little bit of a struggle for Cruz, right, in that inning. And you got to give credit to Jazz, and we'll get to the Jazz conversation, for keeping Cruz from allowing a run. And you don't know where the Red Sox bullpen goes from there. And we could be sitting here very well, same exact time, talking about how the Yankee season is over. So you give credit to Cruz for getting those big outs and that energy. I have one complaint really about the Yankees and Yankee Stadium right now. It still doesn't feel like this is a rivalry postseason series. And I think it's more Yankees Red Sox. I'm talking stare downs. I'm talking about, a pitch high and tight to get one of the stars off the, plate. Of course, I'm not saying hit the guy. I'm saying set the tone. I feel like we're still missing a little bit of that, but it is nice to hear Yankee Stadium up and loud. As much as they blast sound noise in there, it's nice to see that again. And I think it played a huge factor in that inning, getting behind Cruz even when he was struggling. Last night, the opposite could be said. The moment Weaver started struggling, stadium goes quiet, right? But you saw the opportunity to keep the season alive, and everyone in the attendance was up on their feet clapping, and Cruz was great. Williams was great. And yes, Bednar, after his renegade that we didn't get to watch, he was out there and he was hyped as well. And that's what matters. Boone pulled the right cards. Everyone was backing him. You and I, even on our couches, couple 100 miles away from each other, we were backing those guys, because that's what it takes at this point, is just have each other's backs. I know we're not in that locker room, but that's the message Boone was given today. Let's be real here. Pick up the team from last night and just, if a guy makes a mistake, push through it and get it going. I mean, Jazz, that bad throw, he wouldn't have gotten him, I think, with a good throw anyway, but Cruz picked him up, and Trent Grisham was there to track down that ball effortlessly. And then I think it was the 8th inning with that, near home run to right field that Judge made that nice catch on. I mean, everyone was coming to play today. They could tell their season was on the line, and the bullpen, they answered the call, and they got to do it again tomorrow, with Schlittler probably not going, in my opinion, more than 5.
Well, what I'm going to do here is peel these off and go to our other big topic, because it ties into it. The star of tonight, to all accord, I think you could give to Ben Rice. 2 for 4, 2 ribbies, a long ball that gave everybody confidence that this could happen tonight. They could stay alive. Jazz Chisholm with a incredible diving play to really keep the Yankees in it. And then also the wheels to give them the go-ahead run on an Austin Wells hit. Other guys in the box score to still shout them out, even though we moved on a little bit here. Judge was 2 for 4 tonight. Ribby did strike out, though, in a high leverage spot. Grisham had a very, very nice hit. A walk tonight, a run scored, 4 ABs for him in the performance. Hit for Bellinger, pair of hits for Wells, the go-ahead RBI for Wells as well. Volpe 1 for 4, and an incredible double play, and McMahon got a hit as well. So it was a good performance from the bats, all things considered, against some pretty good pitchers that Boston trotted out there tonight, and that does even include Bello, who had to leave the game in the 3rd for them to go to the bullpen a little bit early. But it feels like the 2 stars of tonight were the 2 guys who didn't start last night, and that was Ben Rice and that was Jazz Chisholm. I get analytics, and I'll start with that before we go back into, tonight's performance. I get analytics. I really do. I don't love it. I think we've gotten too analytics crazy years and years ago when we were using analytics as a weapon and not as the entire freaking game plan. Analytics were great. They were a nice asset. But that cannot be your entire game plan, or you look like an ass for overusing the asset. So that's what happened last night for Booney, amongst other things. Was that you decided to sit two guys, and especially Ben Rice, who in his last 15 games has been exceptional. This last run from Ben Rice has been exceptional. And he looks like the best Yankee to wear 22 in the postseason, but that's a side thing. And Jazz, we have said this since he was acquired. He's the kind of guy who brings a fire, a passion, and an energy that this team misses when he's not on the field. And instead, you go with guys who didn't really feel like they made that much of an impact with that kind of role. And I get it. Again, you go with the analytics. That's your call. Ultimately, it's a call that could get you fired when you make a call like that. But Goldie played well, 2 for 4 last night. You can't destroy him there. Rosario, not great. Austin Wells, 0 for 3 last night. We saw the fried rice connection a couple games ago. Maybe you could have gone with that last night and kept the guy hot bat in the lineup. And then obviously, he wasn't going to DH for Stayin, who's 0 for 8 to start the postseason. Oh, by the way. But all things considered, I understood going with analytics, but I am pissed that they went with analytics when Rice has been your hottest bat right now. And Jazz when it comes to bringing a electricity that is unmatched. Rosario wasn't going to do that, and ultimately Wells didn't do it. And yes, Goldschmidt, again, 2 for 4, but I think Ben Rice being in that lineup provides a little bit more opportunity. And again, I get it, but I also think it could have cost Boone his job if they lost again tonight. Would it have actually? No. Would we have been calling for his head? Would I be a lot more pissed off than I am right now instead of rationalizing it? Yes.
For me, the thing with analytics, and I've said it time and time again, and I think everyone who doesn't like analytics can point to the same thing. It doesn't account for feel. It doesn't account for momentum, because momentum really isn't quantifiable. Neither is feel. But, Ben Rice has been hot. Jazz Chisholm is a spark plug time and time again on the field, as seen by tonight. And obviously, it's easy for us to look at tonight and be like, well, Booney, look what, Jazz did tonight, and you left him on the bench yesterday. Analytics do belong in the game. You're right. When they were an asset, they were so much better. I didn't fight, but I did not like when Joe Girardi was fired, because he brought that passion and he had that feel for the game. But we all know Joe Girardi used analytics, right? At times, analytics weren't as prominent back then. You didn't have all these percentages and all these different stats, but they were certainly out there, and they were certainly usable for a guy like Girardi, who brought that extra feel to the game. There's also the part of, what do they have that we don't have? And I know the answer is probably a lot, but I put out a simple tweet today. Jazz Chisholm against left-handed pitching this year, 248, 322 on base percentage, 411 OPS. Trent Grisham versus left-handed pitchers, 182, 303 on base percentage, 348, not OPS, slugging, that is, at the end. Well, you left a 30-30 guy on the bench for another guy with 30 home runs, but one of them has had a lot more success against lefties than others. How do you fix it? You sacrifice defense. Your defense is already sacrificed. Let's be real here. Ryan McMahon was on the bench, rightfully so, by the way, with the way he's been hitting. He had a nice knock today. Judge is not good defensively right now in right field. So you put Caballero in the outfield with Bellinger controlling center, which makes up, I think, for, that play, for example, where Judge and Trent, neither of them really sprinted after it, and Judge got there and couldn't throw it. You put Caballero in left. You put, Bellinger in center, Judge in right, Trent on the bench, Rosario at third, and boom, second base is open for Jazz. I don't think it was that difficult to read the numbers I just saw. And maybe analytics say Trent Grisham's been hitting better against lefties, but come on. I watched the guy have uncompetitive at-bat after uncompetitive at-bat last night. 0 for 4 with 4 Ks, if I'm not mistaken. That wasn't good. And look, Jazz tonight, looked bad through his first plate appearances, and a couple of them were against lefties, but he came through when it mattered most. And you were waiting for that moment from Grisham, but from going from Crochet to Chapman, and you didn't know Cora was going to do that, but you could have assumed, you left him in tough position after tough position. And last point on the analytics part. What part of analytics told you to put Jazz Chisholm in right after Rosario had his last at bat, automatically putting another lefty in there, and boom, that spot comes up against Aroldis Chapman? And I don't know if Rosario delivers, but I certainly can tell you probably a better chance because of what Rosario does against lefties. What part of analytics said to put in Rosario that early? And I texted you the moment it happened. I said, why are you putting Jazz in? Because now it means lefties in a row. And if he comes up, it's against Chapman. And sure enough, I proved to be right. But the analytics have taken over, and it really stinks.
It's our biggest frustration, obviously, from last night, outside of, the loss that came on the board. Weaver's performance is another move that you could point to as a Boone decision again, because you go with your probably most rocky performance from a bullpen arm right now. And so you can pinpoint a number of them, but it's kind of a feather in the cap for a manager who's made a number of bad decisions in the postseason. We go back to the Nestor moment all the time. We go back to a number of moments in the World Series that could have cost them the World Series. We are very harsh on Boone on this program. We were all but calling for his heads in June and July. But the one thing I will say about Aaron Boone is that, and I think you kind of alluded to this, but you can't fault him to the highest degree, because as hard as we are on him, they are in the postseason again. They were in the World Series a year ago. And for all his flaws, he somehow has found a way to be consistently consistent throughout the course of his tenure. But we're just asking for a little bit more. And right now, you make a decision like that last night, and hell, if you make it again tomorrow night, this is not going to fare well for Booney if this is the farewell for the Yankees season. So that's kind of just the consensus there. I didn't know if you had any other thoughts on the offense tonight. I mean, it was a pretty strong performance. Everybody kind of chipping in, nobody really taking the ball other than Ben. But it was a pretty team performance, but it was a gritty performance. They come out on top, compensate for Booney's boneheaded decisions last night, and now we are heading to a Game 3.
They got the job done, right? You needed 4 runs tonight, and they got you 4 runs tonight. There's not much more to say about it. In the postseason, you expect your offense to perform a little worse because you're facing, the best pitching staffs in the league, because that's how you make the playoffs. So you expect the downfall a little bit, but at the same time, you need a couple more clutch moments. I texted you kind of as a joke, but also kind of serious. Judge's postseason moment for now, hopefully there's a bigger one. He started off the postseason hot, was a ball that, Jarren Duran had to leave his feet for. It was counted a single, but one that Jarren Duran should have had. Kind of an error, if you ask me. But, I mean, that type of stuff, it got the job done tonight. You put the ball in play, which was the difference from last night into tonight. And for all you listeners confused tomorrow when you're watching this, we're talking about from Game 1 to Game 2 right now, the night before Game 3. But I got the job done. Carlos Rodon only allowed 3. The bullpen went scoreless, and that allowed your offense to come up with the big home run. Judge's clutch single error. I call it an error, but it's counted as a single. And then Jazz. I mean, first of all, what a plate appearance from Jazz to work that walk. And then for Austin Wells to foul off a couple pitches in a row, keep pulling them that way. And then on 3-2, Jazz is running and it, perfectly right down the line. And you took that weird hop off the wall. You get lucky breaks when you put the ball in play. Couldn't do it against Crochet, but it got the job done tonight.
Playoff Volpe, again, continues to strike. A home run last night, hell of a play tonight, and playoff Volpe continues to impress. The kid, the little Italian kid, as you called him last night over text, and Austin Wells too. Both of them had their moments in the postseason a year ago, both of them doing it again. And you know what? There's a lot of Yankees fans, and I said this exact scenario when we were talking about guys who could coin themselves in Yankees history. Trent Grisham, one of those guys. Volpe, one of those guys we talked about. You could forget a lot of the bad in the regular season, and Carl Ravitch and Eduardo Perez kind of alluded to that tonight, that you could forget a lot of the bad if all he does this postseason is good, en route to a successful one, if not en route to a World Series. Originally, we weren't going to do a pinstripe panic meter. We're going to kind of rifle through, but I want to still go quickly through this pinstripe panic meter. But I do want to bring it up because I was thinking it after another strikeout tonight. What is your panic on Aaron Judge right now in terms of, and I know you look a little bit like baffled by this question. Noodle arm last night, as Dave Portnoy called him. Obviously, we both know, not these Boston you-know-whats, a-holes. The thing that Portnoy, it's really just Portnoy. I have been a big defender of Boston, not the Red Sox, but by people of Boston. I love the city, but man, I wish somebody would have given Portnoy a swirly when he is tweeting against my team. When he's tweeting against Ohio State, yeah, Dave, get him, Dave. When he's trolling other teams, yeah, Dave, get him, Dave. When you're going against the Yankees, that guy is the most insufferable person to have tweet notifications for on Twitter because he was bashing them tonight. He called Judge's arm a noodle arm. Realistically, we know that he's still not 100% from the injury, and I don't think he's going to be until this offseason, and he gets some rest and gets time to possibly even get a procedure done if need be. But I'm talking about the lack of the big moments still because I don't know. We're New York sports fans, but we are New Yorkers at the end of the day. You know, it's what FAN is going to talk about tomorrow. We're still lacking the big signature Judge postseason run. And through the early indications for the first two nights, the noodle arm throw, again, Portnoy's quote, not mine, but the poor throw, the poor defensive plays we've seen in the lead up to it, obviously not giving you the most confidence. And then the plate appearances. Where is your panic meter at on Judge having yet again a little bit of a lackluster postseason run?
Yeah, I mean, we got to give it a number 1 through 10. I'm kind of right in the middle, right around a 5. I'm not going to go really high because he is hitting. He's 4 for 8 through the first 2 games of this series. Or
it's not the Judge hits.
I think it's 4 for 8. Yeah,
he's clogging the bases as they say.
Wait, time out. It's not the Judge hits. Can you show me Judge's hits from the last couple postseasons? Because they're kind of on this wall behind me right here. Invincible, because he hasn't had those hits. I'll take any production. Okay. And clogging the base paths, getting on base matters. We saw it tonight. If Jazz doesn't get on base, Wells doesn't drive in anyone. Getting on base, I don't care. You know who clogged the bases last night? Paul Goldschmidt, because he's a little bit slow and old. Aaron Judge is still fast in the field. He's still fast on the base paths. He ain't clogging the damn base paths. Yeah. Do I want home runs from Aaron Judge? Do I want that big moment? Yes. Am I holding out hope for that big moment? Absolutely. My concern, and this is where I go because we wanted to keep it short. My concern is in the outfield. And I was thinking to myself today, is it worth, with the way Stanton has started the first 2 games of this series, is it worth potentially putting Stanton on the bench, Judge DH, and put in, I guess now it would be Dominguez. I would have hoped Slater was on the roster. They didn't put him in for Esquera, but putting him there or putting, I guess, Dominguez tomorrow, putting Slater in the next series, whatever the case is, because that throw last night is a throw that an outfielder with a medium to good arm can make. And Judge does not have a medium to good arm right now. He's got a below average to medium arm, and that is a problem. And there was no problem with him cutting off that ball. But in my opinion, Trent's got to know. I think most of my concern's Trent. Trent has to know to sprint to that ball because Judge can't throw as good as he should be able to. And maybe Judge has to leave that ball for Trent. Whatever the case is, I am concerned more about the field than I am at the plate. That's why I give it a 5 out of 10. Yeah, I'm waiting for his iconic moment. If I wait forever, I might die still waiting for it. So I don't know if I'm going to keep holding my breath, but 4 for 8, you're getting on base, and getting on base manufactures runs. And he had his moment today with that RBI single. He put the ball in play, and that's what matters.
I don't want him hitting 290 and clogging up the bases. I want extra base hits and driving in a bunch of runs. That would be Mark DeRosa, who had that quote on Cal Raleigh.
Yeah. The USA baseball the manager.
Maybe we shouldn't be shocked they lost in the World Baseball Classic. Anyways, flipping the page here a little bit to my rating. I mean, I was bringing this up for fodder. I wasn't. At the end of the day, huh?
Of course. What else are we going to do at 9:45 on a Wednesday night?
Listen, Judge is playing fine. that would be my panic, would be more high on Stanton. Stanton would be like a 7-1 because I do think you can get a better guy in the outfield right now, and that might be the play to make. And hell, the kids look all right in the postseason right now, so maybe we get the Martian in the mix.
Could it even be Caballero? I mean, now that
is big moments this season, so I'm all for that idea. I agree.
They are starting a lefty tomorrow, which makes it tough. You want Stanton in the lineup. You obviously want Judge and Stanton right there, 2 of 3 hitters. The 2 spot and the 4 spot.
After last year, he's not going to be on the bench.
No, of course not. But look at
a postseason spot forever.
Look what got him hot before he cooled off. It was him coming off the bench. True. And then it was like, oh, crap, we need to play him. We put him in right field. He starts getting hot. Maybe, I don't know. They won't do it, but it's certainly something I thought of. And if I was managing this team on MLB The Show, I probably would have Stanton benched right now.
Well, you're not managing them. Aaron Boone is.
And good, because I'd be worse than him.
But we also know Booney's made some questionable calls. My panic's like a 4-1, so even though it was my topic, it's actually less than yours. As long as he's productive.
Threw me off.
As long as he's productive, that's all I care about. And
he's caught the bases.
He's gonna have his signature moment at some point if he continues this level of productivity. He's continued it since he's come back from injury after, about a 20-game grace period. But for the most part, if he's productive, I don't think anybody really cares.
And he is the MVP.
And he is the most valuable player. That case has been closed for 2 weeks. Tomorrow night, it is going to be the Rookie Rumble, as Justin called it. We will see Cam Schlittler take the bump. Our pride and joy on this program, he will make his postseason debut. A lot of pressure on the kid, but if he is as crazy, even an ounce as Fernando Cruz, or as psycho as some of the greats are like Cole, and even, go back to Zach Greinke, some of these guys who are just freaks for moments like these, they rise to the occasion because they're just a little crazy, and that's what you like in your starting pitchers. 14 appearances, 4-3 records, sub-3 ERA on the campaign since joining the team just before the All-Star, or before the trade deadline, rather. This is a guy who has absolutely carved himself out a spot on this team for the future. This is a guy who has stepped up in big moments already this year, and this is a guy who, it could go one of 2 ways. It has to. Either he's going to get roughed up a little bit in his first start in the postseason, or like I said, that crazy comes out. He's a little bit psycho, and he relishes moments like these, and Cam Schlittler is the shit tomorrow night. And he comes out there and delivers a hell of a performance. I'm going to bank on the last one. I think that's what happens, but he will match up against Connolly Early, who's done pretty well through 4 appearances, 2.33 ERA, 19 1/3. Yes, they used part of their bullpen tonight, but as Justin mentioned, the pitch count wasn't super duper high. This is, to all accord, a bullpen game. This is not just a bullpen game for both sides, though, because, Schlittler, they're going to go as far as Schlittler pitch as well. And the same case with Connolly Early. This is a tap out, exhaust all resources, throw it at the wall, see what sticks. And if that doesn't work, don't be afraid to pull the plug, because this is all or nothing. Game 3 feels like I should be saying game 7, but it's game 3. The season's on the line. You're done one way or the other. So either these guys got until March to rest, or you got a couple days, but you're still moving on. And that's a better problem to have than booking your trip to Cabo. So this isn't a bullpen game by necessarily for either side, maybe a little bit for Boston, but this is a game that kind of becomes a bullpen game when it is elimination, do or die, season on the line. I want to see all resources exhausted, but at the same time, I have this gut feeling that both these guys go at least 5, maybe further into the game tomorrow night, and I think we see a rookie battle that is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. This is just the second winner-take-all game in postseason history with 2 rookie starting pitchers in Early and Schlittler. The other one, 2020, a year where almost everything went wrong, right, with COVID and all that. NLCS Game 7, Dustin May versus Ian Anderson. And just for reference, right, these are 2 young guys. I know it was in the NLCS, so a couple rounds had passed. Ian Anderson went 3 innings, 5 hits, 2 runs. They were both earned 2 strikeouts, 2 walks. Dustin May used for an inning, 1 hit, 1 run. It was earned, 2 walks and a strikeout before the Dodgers handed over to their bullpen and won that game. What does that mean? No, nothing really, because that's a totally different league. That's the NL. And those totally different pitchers, both of which I don't know how good they did this year. I think Ian Anderson was hurt. I think Dustin May battled injury again. Here's the thing. Cam Schlittler has a lot more tape against him. Early has only pitched 4 times, but for Schlittler, you look at what he's done. His last 7 games, he's 3-1, a 2.70 ERA, 36 2/3, 26 hits, 11 earned, 46 strikeouts to 15 walks. That walk number, that could hurt him. If you let up walks to this Boston Red Sox team, they're going to make you pay. Now, that being said, over his last 2 starts, he's only got a walk in each of them, though he did hit 2 Baltimore Orioles in that final start, which he went 7 innings of 2-hit shutout baseball. This is a guy that's gotten good at the right time, right? He had that rough start where he went an inning and 2/3 against Toronto, allowing 4 earned. He also got roughed up in 4 2/3 against Minnesota, also allowing 4 runs. He's a guy that you don't know what version you're going to get tomorrow, but you are also so right, Dylan, by saying that that's a guy that looks like he's made for the postseason. He's got a little bit of crazy in him, and we've seen it, right? We saw it with Cruz tonight. We've seen it with Garrett Cole in the past. You can think of so many guys that can just show it's not crazy, it's confidence. And that's what you want to see tomorrow. Don't go psycho and go lose all of your command. Show that confidence. Show that fastball first pitch. First pitch high in the zone, maybe high and tight. Scare them off the plate early and get that confidence boosting, not just through your own veins, but through the veins of everyone at Yankee Stadium, everyone watching and rooting for the Yankees, and of course your teammates. Now we switch to Connelly early. This is a guy that who knows what he's going to bring tomorrow. But what I can tell you is because of the way Alex Cora has managed this series, he's going with the lefty. And that makes it difficult to make your lineup tomorrow if you're Aaron Boone. It should make it easy. We just talked about it. Play Jazz, play Rice, figure it out. They'll probably play Goldie, and I don't know where they go from there, but Goldie needs to be in against a lefty. The issue with that is who comes out of the bullpen next? Is it a righty? Is it back to a lefty? And that's where this is a chess game tomorrow more than it is, rookie versus rookie. But that being said, maybe they want to run with Early for a while. This is a guy who, if you pull up his Baseball Savant page, there is almost all red on that page. And I don't know what all of these stats are, but usually if you got a bunch of red on your Baseball Savant page, you're pretty damn good. His one blue area, his hard hit's right in the middle, so it's gray, but his fastball velocity is blue. Capitalize. You've seen 97. You've seen 100 from Crochet. You saw those same high velocities from Aroldis Chapman. You're used to the heat. Now make him pay for putting a pitcher that's going to drop a couple miles per hour. On the opposite hand, if you're the Yankees, good luck, Red Sox. You haven't seen what Schlittler's throwing out there. Max Fried's fastball doesn't go that high. Neither does Rodon. You look at the 4 teams Connelly Early has started against to this point, and you wonder, is he a product of the teams he was playing, or is he really this good? At Athletics, and then home against the Athletics. So his first 2 starts, 10 1/3 of 1 earned run. Then played Tampa, 4 innings pitched, 3 runs, 2 earned. And then Detroit, 5 innings, 4 hits, 2 runs. They were both earned. So, it's kind of a toss-up on what you're going to get, but you got to be ready for everything. And this is a point tomorrow where it feels like Boone's got to balance his lineup more than anything. And obviously, you got to be ready in the bullpen. I have this question for you, changing the tides a little bit here. When Schlittler's removed, let's say it's before the 5th inning, who comes out of that bullpen for the Yankees? My guess is Warren for an inning, but he's gotten bashed by the Red Sox. I just don't know who else. Who else do you trust? You need Schlittler to come out confident and crazy and somehow, some way, get you 6 or 7. Because other than that, I don't know how Boone's piecing it together. But if he pieces it together, I might take back every bad word I've ever said about the guy. because tomorrow he is in a tough situation.
Close your ears.
I have headphones on.
Paul Blackburn.
I don't know.
The thought's there. Who would have thought to save the season once? Maybe he does it again. I don't know.
Camilo Doval's probably an option I forgot to name, but
Duvall's an option, and then you can try to get each guy an inning. But that's, again, relying on him to at least get to the 6th or the 7th, because otherwise you're kind of in a tight spot where, like you said, Boone's going to have to manage a gem tomorrow night. But it's all or nothing. I would love to see. I think Warren does make an appearance. We're probably going to see Blackburn if it goes deep. But if it is just a Schlittler masterclass into a Duvall, into – I think everybody will be clenching in fear if Luke Weaver comes out again. But maybe you do give Warren an inning in the 6th or the 7th. Then you get into Duvall, and then maybe high-lev Dev again. And then
probably. Hey, all I know is no matter what you just said, the offense has to put up more than 4 runs tomorrow.
True.
And that's, I think, the one thing we could probably guarantee.
It's got to be a little bit of a shootout. Who starts at first? Who catches tomorrow?
I think Goldschmidt starts at first, and I mean, ooh, you got me here. I was gonna say Wells just had the clutch hit, but Rice just had the. You want Rice off the bench more than you want Wells off the bench, I think. So I would say Wells at catcher, and Goldschmidt at first, but I think Jazz does start at second tomorrow, and Rosario gets third because of McMahon. Your thoughts on first and catcher? I guess everywhere else, because I just went off from your question and answered every question.
I'll go Rice catches, Goldie's at first. I think you do give Wells tonight as the pinch.
I guess he has caught 2 days straight.
True. And keep him fresh for the weekend if you get there. And then that way, if things aren't going well, you have him off the bench. I don't think we see any JC Esquer. But at second base, I think is Jazz. Obviously, Volpe's going to be at short. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know third base, but it's either Cobby or it's, I guess, Rosario. That doesn't exactly fill me with confidence.
I'd prefer Rosario, so you have Caballero's speed off the bench late.
True. That's not a terrible idea either.
Especially with Paul Goldschmidt and Stayin.
Everybody's going to play at some point. They're going to exhaust all resources unless it's a beatdown.
Hell, you and I might get the call up tomorrow.
If it all goes well, maybe we do. But I get a little nervous about leaving Wells out, especially after he was hot. But I also think he's a catcher. You got to have and at least get a little bit of rest in that regard. And, Rice, Schlittler, they've had time together because that was in that weird stint where JC was in Scranton Wilkes-Barre. So Rice has gotten to work with Schlittler. So we'll see. We'll see how it works out in that regard in the lineup. And I don't think much changes elsewhere, but we'll see if it does in a do or die game. If you might have seen, if you're watching us on YouTube, I was playing with the ticker. So that came up at one point. But here's a look around the league because tomorrow we're tracking, if all hangs on in Los Angeles, we could have 4 Game 3s. So we're going to see Detroit and Cleveland kick it off again. A great game through the early part, and then Cleveland turned it on at the end. Skubal was phenomenal yesterday, and this one's even. I mean, for the sake of the Yankees being guardian killers in the postseason, go Cleveland. But Detroit, I mean, this is kind of goes in my Oklahoma City Thunder theory where they're a year away. Maybe they do get bounced in the first round. I would be a little bit surprised, but they have had a really rough end of the season where it feels like they ran out of gas. I wouldn't be shocked. I know you watched a little bit more of that game because I was working, but you watched more of this game and you did get to watch a nice chunk of San Diego, Chicago, which shout out Big Cat, who won the 50-50 today, won $54,000.
Did he actually?
Won $54,000 at the
I
game.
didn't see that.
Finally wins a 50-50. And also Chicago loses. So you take each whatever there. But just your thoughts on those two games, because you've gotten to watch a little bit more of them than I have. San Diego, Chicago, I did have an earbud in though today. So
yeah, my vacation's still ongoing for the moment. Things could be changing here shortly. It's been weird because I think you said it. Like these games have been close, they've been competitive, they've been interesting, and you see, and it's tough to bring up because we've talked a lot about Aaron Boone here in our 45 minutes as we try to make this the shortest episode to date. You've seen the managers each approach every game differently. Chicago pulled Matt Boyd early. They again today, I believe Andrew Kittredge was on the mound today. If not, he's on tomorrow. Whatever the case is, they pulled him early, right? And you've seen, Hunter Green get shelled kind of quick against the Dodgers last night for Cincinnati, and a different flip of the switch. It just feels to me that this is the first time we've seen the expanded playoffs actually do what they were meant to do in terms of increasing viewership and, making the playoffs a bit more interesting. I used to love the 1-game wild card. Win or go home, those are the best games. And somehow we might end up with 4 win or go home games tomorrow. I have one complaint, and one complaint only. Playoff baseball should not be started at noon, and it shouldn't be started at 3 p.m. either. 2 games a day. I know it makes it tough, but you're the ones who expanded the playoffs. Maybe cut a week out of the regular season. I know it means the other teams will have to wait longer, but I can't be watching playoff baseball at noon. I can, but most people can't be. And I think it's a little ridiculous, but it's been fun so far. And I think that is the best part of it. I think there's still tweaks to be made, but great series so far. And I think what this series does more than probably any other series, because they're longer, it makes managers earn their pay. And I said it earlier, how everyone's approached it a little differently. Cora letting Crochet go long while Fried got pulled early last night, all that stuff, Bello getting pulled early today. It makes it that chess match. And in 7-game series, sometimes you have to let your pitcher get shelled for an extra inning because you need the bullpen in the longer series. So it has been fun. It feels like a little bit like real baseball. And last point, the extra inning rule is gone. Once we get to extras, we get real baseball.
I like the extra inning rule, but I guess that's just me when it comes to you and I.
Yeah, clear. I've always been that way, and you know that for a fact.
I like it. I like the ghost runner, except we'll go back to my thing that I would always yell in comm radio. They might be ghost runners, but they are real people.
And they always score against the Yankees.
Okay, I like the extra inning rule, but quick, I'm going to go Detroit wins, Chicago wins, and I don't want to predict Cincinnati, LA, but I'll say LA just for the hell of it.
I want to see these starters real quick.
I said quick prediction.
All right, fine. I guess I won't look
these games. You watch these games.
I don't know who the starters are tomorrow. All right, I've got Cleveland, home field advantage. I got San Diego. Sorry, our good friend Thomas English. If you haven't checked out Locks and Long Shots, he tends to host it here on the Bomber Boys Podcast Network. And I think LA makes the comeback here in game 2 and is the one series that doesn't go 3. I think we have one more game to predict.
I don't want
to because we're a Yankee-centric podcast. And take that hint as to who I think is winning tomorrow.
I'm an objective. Hold, please. I'm an objective. I'm an objective reporter. I don't
You're writing something down.
But I do have one last message for our YouTube audience, and Justin can read it to the Spotify audience. But it says,
Cam the Crazy. I think that means I think he might have the Yankees tomorrow. I already said it. We're a Yankee-centric podcast, and I don't think my prediction would go over well here.
Cam the Crazy. Justin and I seems like we're on opposite sides.
Hey, the early bird. You know what? If we're going to go off the starting pitchers, the early bird gets the worm.
Okay. Well, one thing's for certain, win or loss, we will be back for either the most electric episode. I think it's going to be the most electric one way or the other, because either we got a matchup with those dirty birds from up north, or the Yankees have a trip to Cabo, and Justin and I have some top-tier ranting to do.
Can we go to Cabo too?
I don't know if we're welcome with them if they lose that game. But anyways, Justin, any final thoughts before tomorrow night? Just win is my mentality. Cam the Crazy.
No matter who I have winning in my prediction, it's always, and it will always be, go Yanks.
For Justin Chevalella, I am Dylan Price saying, this is it, folks. The 162 plus games have led to this. It is
164 to be exact.
It is do or die. All or nothing. rookie on rookie, Cam the Crazy versus Early Bird Gets the Worm as Justin coined him. Boone, Cora, Yankees, Boston with the trip to face Toronto in the American League Division Series. But more importantly, the series continues. Your chase for a World Series continues. Either the chase for 28 continues or pack those bags. The boys are heading to Cabo. But either way, wherever you are, wherever you may be, thank you for hanging with us. We will be back one way or another very, very soon with another iteration of Bomber Boys.